Be still and know that I am God. Psalm 46, verse 10. Today we're going to talk about silence and solitude because it's hard to be still in a world today. There's technology and busyness and information, advertising, media, all voices clanging for our attention. So let's start with solitude. What is it? Solitude is the practice of uninterrupted time where you are alone with God. Solitude is a container discipline for many other spiritual disciplines that we're going to talk about. And we need solitude simply because Jesus needed it. In Mark chapter 1, verse 35, it says that very early in the morning while it was still dark, Jesus got up, left the house, and went off to a solitary place where he prayed. Simply put, this is where Jesus surrendered his will to the Father, especially after performing miracles and doing good works, because Jesus understood the intoxicating feeling that comes with accolades and affirmation and producing. And we struggle so much with solitude because we're rarely alone these days. We have the world vying for our attention right in our pockets. And the truth is that it's addictive because our pride wants to tell us that the world cannot revolve without us. And we also are constantly operating out of these two tensions, our false self and our authentic self. Our false self is where our fears and our insecurities convince us that we have to put on a facade. But Dallas Willard reminds us that in solitude and silence, it's so difficult because it reminds us of death, where it's just God and us. And if there isn't much between God and us, it's a very scary place. Solitude and silence invite us to just be before the presence of God. And the fruit of this practice is having a freedom from the need to be occupied or stimulated all the time. The fruit is liberation from living your life constantly in reference to other people. And the fruit is quietening your internal noise so that you can better listen to God. And a partner to solitude is silence. Silence as a spiritual practice is the regenerative practice of attending to and listening to God in the quiet. It's the freedom from producing. And we need silence because in 1 Kings chapter 12, verse 12, it says, "After the earthquake came a fire, but the Lord was not in the fire. After the fire came a gentle whisper." God speaks in silence. John 16, verses 12 through 13 say, "I have much more to say to you, but you cannot now bear it. But when the Spirit of truth comes, he will guide you into all truth." We need to put ourselves in a position to receive, to hear from God and the Holy Spirit, to feel what we're so desperately trying to avoid, whether that's loss, sadness, grief, anger, betrayal, or sickness. Because our faith isn't an excuse to divorce ourselves from our feelings or our pain or even our own bodies. When we do that, it's a trap of offense and bitterness. But instead, in silence, we have an invitation from Emmanuel, the Prince of Peace, the mighty counselor, to dwell with us and deliver us peace that doesn't make sense, to listen to the Holy Spirit and to surrender. It's in silence where we are transformed. And we struggle with this because the challenges of our cultural addiction to busyness. Even if you're resting, think about it. We're scrolling or watching TV and it keeps our mind busy because we have an addiction to productivity. The truth is that silence asks us to wait and to be patient, and both seem so unproductive. So it's there in silence that we fill it. We cram it with something else that we can learn, do, or achieve. But let's talk about how to apply these two spiritual disciplines, because spiritual transformation is about practicing ways to give up control and surrender to God. It's not about self-improvement. We need to say no in order to say yes to the right things. Some practical ways you can do this are to drive without the radio or music, leave your TV off, maybe have a personal retreat. Some of the things I like to do are daily. Start with just 5 minutes. Set a timer of 5 minutes of quiet. Turn off your technology, shut the door, put a sign on it, and intentionally place yourself in the presence of God to be quiet. And as you become quiet, I invite you to ask yourself, what do you hear? Traffic in the background, voices, your own breath, the hum of the fan or the wind? Let the noise go. Let the distracting thoughts go. Say, "Here I am, Lord." And maybe for you, it looks like a yearly personal retreat. Did you know that we have the Abbey of the Genesee only 30 minutes away from us? And you can go there and have a silent retreat where you can begin to connect with some of the things that you are so desperately running from and hear the voice of God that wants to transform those deep places within you. Some additional resources, if you're looking for them, are a few books. One is The Invitation of Silence and Solitude by Ruth Haley Barton. The second is Sacred Rhythms, also by Ruth Haley Barton. The Spiritual Disciplines Handbook by Adele Alberg Calhoun. And Emotionally Healthy Spirituality Day by Day by Peter Scazzaro. I promise you that as you start to implement these, start small because silence feels scary at first. You will feel and hear the voice of God, and you will not be the same.